This peak, Fox News contributor and syndicated columnist Brianna Lyman returns, correspondent at The Federalist, and lo and behold, Mark Simone, Hall of Fame WOR radio host. I could have sworn I lost him on the West Side someplace, but he has returned. Good to see all of you. Now, Liz, I'm not going to spend this whole segment on this numbers, but you are accustomed to numbers. You have a Wall Street numerical background. So I might be wrong. This is back to the envelope stuff. I checked in with Kevin Hassett today. I checked in the NEC director. I checked in with Russell Vought. I'm not saying they approve or disapprove. I'm just saying they're ballpark, given my assumptions. And the one thing that I will not yield on is the extending the tax cut package will not cause any deficits. The CBO is stubborn. Yeah. I'm sorry they're stubborn, but history proves. We actually have another chart. We could actually put it up here. This could be the CBO dummy chart. While we're talking, we'll put the CBO dummy chart on how many other things they got wrong down through the years. But I don't want to make this too personal. What do you think? So this is, I'm just saying it's a deficit reduction package, okay? The deficit is going to come down in the next 10 years by somewhere between $4 and $8 trillion. That's basically what's happening.
I mean, this is a tremendous blowback to this idea that this is really a terrible hit to our country's fiscal situation. Right. And I love the fact that you also use different growth assumptions, and people can see how important that is. Well, why is that important, Larry? Because we need this bill to go through. We need these tax cuts to go through in order to get that growth. And honestly, you have made the case over and over again, but Congress doesn't understand, or doesn't seem to understand, that growth is such a powerful multiplier that you will get so many benefits from not just, by the way, this tax bill, but also deregulation and inviting foreigners to come and invest here. And yes, maybe through tariffs, creating more incentives for foreigners to invest here. So I think it's a very powerful argument. And you know what? You're making it pretty well. What's really discouraging is that the GOP does not seem able to make it.
This is what I used to do.
Well, you know, you got to go back to doing it, because we need more positive remarks about it. They need to convince. You need to convince people like Senator Scott and others that these deficits are not going to be as big as the CBO says. The most irritating thing is that they don't just assume that this is ongoing legislation. These are not new tax cuts that we're putting in.
That's right.
This is the existing world we're living in.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
It's frustrating.
Sometimes the historical facts are more important than some of these crazy-ass models. Mark Simone, you don't have any thoughts on the numbers, do you?
Well,
I didn't slot you in for your numerical, but if you have something to say on the matter, I'd love to hear it.
I just have common sense. I would trust your analysis
of
this bill.
Terrific.
I wouldn't trust you to build a Tesla engine. Elon Musk, I'll trust him on that. But I wouldn't trust him to break down a bill. He's not even in this field.
He's a very bright guy, and I still believe he's the smartest guy in the world. I might have some new disagreements with him on some things, but the reality is, I'm not going to go through there's a difference between rescissions and reconciliation, and between appropriations and rescission. I don't want to even talk. We're going to save that for Steve Miller. I don't think Elon understands the ways and means of government. That's all. Brianna, though, I think the other thing that's worth thinking about here, besides the growth numbers and the growth dividend that Lizzie pointed out, is this big welfare reform. It's the Medicaid. It's also SNAP food stamps. I think some of this spills over into whatever welfare is called now, TAMF or something like that. But the point is, you have to work. Yeah. You have to go to work. You're not going to get paid, no federal benefits, if you're able-bodied, right, and you have no dependents. Able-bodied males whose population has skyrocketed, and so therefore Medicaid and food stamps and welfare spending has skyrocketed under Obama, COVID, Biden, all right? It's got to be stopped, because it's bankrupting everything and will ultimately bankrupt Medicaid.
Yeah, and Medicaid.
So it's a big deal, is what I'm saying, the welfare piece of it.
It's a huge deal, and it's partially Obama's fault. He opened up that Medicaid eligibility for able-bodied individuals in America, and it's ballooned since then. Another part we have to think of with this big, beautiful bill, if you remember at the RNC convention, the signs that were being held up were signs that said mass deportations now, not fix the deficit. And this bill allows the administration to secure the border, to speed up deportations so that Donald Trump can actually fulfill those promises. So I'm not discrediting people who are concerned about the numbers, but like you said, Not all of us are economists, not all of us are numbers people. So if you look at what Donald Trump promised, what Republicans promised, this big, beautiful bill does help them do that to some degree.
Promises made, promises kept. By the way, we had talked to Steve Miller about this because they've stepped up the deportations.
Yes.
And they put ICE on red alert. And there's a lot of money in here to help them do that. And while we're on the subject, I know you've written about this. I mean, did I read this right? I'm old. My eyes are sometimes, or I use the wrong glasses. But a judge in Colorado is preventing the family of the terrorist who shot up the Israelis from being deported or even being incarcerated. Did I get that? Is that possible?
Larry, I wish you were wearing wrong glasses.
What kind of judge would do such a thing?
A judge who wants to misapply the law, and instead, this is a raw display of judicial overreach, because what Donald Trump has experienced this first 6 months is a judicial coup. And when you have one branch of government that has to seek permission from another branch of government to carry out the authority that is vested within their constitutional scope, you do not have three co-equal branches of government. You have one branch controlling everything, and in this case, it is judicial supremacy. And we cannot continue as a country to treat these judicial decrees as though they are legitimate when they are coming from unelected, inferior court judges who are usurping the authority of the executive.
And Mark, we've been talking all week on this program that the anti-Semitism, DEI turns into anti-Semitism, but anti-Semitism has turned into terrorism. It's really anti-Americanism, no question about it. So here in New York, one of these crazy people from picketing at Columbia, turns out he was part of a Hamas chat group, right? So there's your terrorist influence. It's very real. Facts show. I don't care what the liberal media says. Facts show, whether it's the Egyptian who's yelling and he wants to be for the Palestinian radicals, or whether it's the Khalil, whatever, from Colombia, who's, I think, still in jail in Louisiana, which is where he belongs, or this other guy whose name I can't remember, who is a big anti-Semitic, anti-Israeli guy who was in a Hamas chat room. Really? Hamas chat room? Is that what this has come to?
Militant Hamas.
Militant, yeah.
And we used to have fake news. Now we have what's called incomplete news. If you watch the network news, they forget to mention most of the details of the story, the anti-Semitic things this guy had yelled that he had on him. The family, there's no way on earth they didn't know about his attack that he was planning. There was too much evidence there. That's why they're deporting him. I mean, what are you going to see? Democratic senators visit this guy in jail too?
Did anybody in the
and they're here illegally. They overstayed their visas.
The Democratic senators. I'm sorry. I got that completely wrong. It's a complete disconnect. I was just going to ask my pal. I'm saving one more for you. Mark Simone, in the mayoral debate, New York City mayoral debate last night, which I hear was really a lollapalooza, did Cuomo or anybody come out hard against this DEI, anti-Semitic, terrorism, anti-Americanism?
No, it was a Democratic debate. You know, everybody's afraid of the real left-wing Democrats. That's Cuomo. He's the guy that gave us no bail, no jail. He took away the qualified immunity from cops. He changed the parole board, so they let out everybody now. He closed prisons. They're all terrible.
They won't step up
left-wing.
on it. They wouldn't step up on it. Liz, the other thing is Trump wants to stop or put a hold on this foreign student visas. But he really clarified it today in the Oval following his phone call with Xi Jinping. What he's saying is, he's saying, I welcome foreign students. A lot of people are saying, oh, we need foreign. He said, I welcome foreign students, but I want to know who they are. I want to vet them. And he's asking Columbia and Harvard in particular to show the list. Who are these people? Who vetted these people? Because they might be reporting to the Chinese Communist Party. We've had plenty of examples of that. I don't think that's unreasonable on Trump's part.
And I think Harvard's refusing to do it, which is sort of horrifying to me, as they have refused to go along with all kinds of requests from this administration, which are aimed at making Jewish students comfortable and safe on Harvard's campus. I mean, we have to kind of go back to what's wrong here. What's wrong is anti-Semitism on Harvard's campus and on other campuses. But you're right, we just had this instance of a Chinese national trying to bring in a very powerful aggro weapon to a researcher student at University of Michigan. So I have heard so many stories like this, Larry. It's not just Chinese, but mainly it is Chinese people coming in and who are spies, who are infiltrating our labs, et cetera, et cetera. So I think Trump's premise is completely correct. and his travel ban, which is a separate thing, I guess, also kind of makes sense.
It's all the piece.
All he wants is information,
That's
right?
right. That's
he wants
right.
to know who's coming into our country. We should know who's coming into our country.
And we should realize that I'm not going to say every Chinese national, but evidence shows that most Chinese nationals wind up one way or another reporting to the Chinese Communist
without
Party.
a doubt.
Okay, we know that.
Yeah.
So Trump is not unreasonable about that, and it's going to be a big issue. I know New York is absolutely hopeless. I don't know why we all live there.
You never know.
Really?
You never know.
You never know. I don't know. Well, no, we got to get out of here. Liz Peek, Brianna Lyman, Mark Simone, you're all fabulous. Really appreciate it.